Hey there. Are you tired of waiting for the next episode of It's Probably Not Aliens? Well, we've got some good news for you. On Nebula, our streaming service, you can get access to all our episodes a week early. That's right, you'll never have to wait again to hear Scott and I debunk the latest ancient astronaut theory or get a movie fact wrong. But that's not all. Nebula is home to dozens of content creators we know you like, so you can find all your favorites in one place. Plus, we post content on there that you won't find anywhere else. And the best part? By signing up for Nebula at nebula.tv/probablyNotAliens, you're directly supporting the show and both of us. So don't wait any longer. Join Nebula today and listen to... Hey there. Are you tired of waiting for the next episode of It's Probably Not Aliens? Well, we've got some good news for you. On Nebula, our streaming service, you can get access to all our episodes a week early. That's right, you'll never have to wait again to hear Scott and I debunk the latest ancient astronaut theory or get a movie fact wrong. But that's not all. Nebula is home to dozens of content creators we know you like, so you can find all your favorites in one place. Plus, we post content on there that you won't find anywhere else. And the best part? By signing up for Nebula at nebula.tv/probablyNotAliens, you're directly supporting the show and both of us. So don't wait any longer. Join Nebula today and listen to the next episode right after this one. Have you played the game that basically acted as babysitter for the entire Zoomer generation?
Yeah, that's not even a joke. Emily's told me before about how she was a babysitter for a kid, and all that kid did was
play Minecraft.
Sit in their room and play Minecraft while she did nothing. She didn't even watch it because she didn't need to.
Yeah.
Have I played Minecraft is the question.
Yes.
When I was in college, these videos might still be public unless I privated them. We used to have a Minecraft series on Nerdsync, but I'm almost positive I've privated them by now, so you can't promote them at the very end of this episode, Tristan.
What you need to do now, because you have given them existence, you need to make them unlisted, and we need to find a secret way for the page the what's it called, the people on nebula.tv/probablyNotAliens to
they're not
to get
good.
Secret access. Yeah, but that's the point. That's the fun.
All right. Yes, I've played Minecraft briefly back in the day of my college years. I mostly just like creative. The only thing I remember is I made a giant Green Lantern, like a very big Green Lantern from the comic books, but I made that in creative mode. I played a little bit of survival, but it wasn't my favorite thing.
Okay.
This is a video game podcast now.
Yeah.
Also,
it's funny. It's two millennials talking about like the quintessential Zoomer game. Cause like Minecraft came out when I was also in college. I remember I was thinking I was maybe about 23, 24, that around that when it came out. And sure. I remember like my peak Minecraft period was when it had not come out. Like it officially went live. I remember this because it came out the same day Skyrim did on November 11th, 2011. I remember that was like the 11/11/11. That was like that was Minecraft getting its official 1.0 release, and also the day that Skyrim came out. And
that's fun. Then I must have played Minecraft before then too, because I played a friend of mine a year or two prior was telling me about this game called Minecraft, and he made me download it on my computer at the time.
There was a time, the thing is that it officially came out on that day, but it had a very long beta life where it was sort of this little indie game that people were getting into. And
that's awesome. So theoretically, I'm in that indie scene crowd where I'm like, I played Minecraft before its initial release, even though I played it for like maybe a couple hours and I was like, I don't really get this.
Yeah.
But I still did it.
Yeah. So my peak where I played Minecraft a lot, I remember that one of them was that when I went to Mexico City, I like played it the entire flight on the way down on my little laptop. And I remember enjoying that quite a bit and like playing it a lot. And the thing is that like then I kind of stopped playing it because if anybody knows anything about me is that getting me to play video games or getting me to do, it seems like today I'm getting like I'm like a broken human because like getting me to do anything that is fun that people do to enjoy themselves, I like just cannot bring myself to do. Like we were talking a little bit about before the show, the kind of stuff that we do to unwind and relax. And I'm like, if I had a night tonight, I would watch a movie that I started watching, not because I'm like, oh man, I really want to watch a movie, but because everyone was getting on my ass about not watching enough movies. So I'm watching a movie out of obligation and then finishing like one of the most bleak and depressing novels I've ever read, followed by getting caught up on the backlog of It's Probably Not Aliens YouTube videos that I haven't put up in a bit. And
Fun evening for Tristan. We would all want to do the same thing.
Yeah. But like but like Minecraft is I actually really liked. It's funny because we came from different angles because I really I like the survival aspect of Minecraft. I like the collecting, even though when I was playing it the most, food wasn't a thing yet, but like getting the food, the armor, and like, digging down and designing a mine so you can get your diamonds at the most efficient rate. And what always happens to me, because I always like every once in a while, I'm like, I should call him, I see somebody make something really cool and I'm like, I should call him. And I ring up Minecraft, I boot it up, and then I'm like, I get in, I get my armor, I get my iron armor, I get my my diamond pickaxe, I build like a stable house that protects me against pretty much everything that's there, and then I'm like, well,
nice.
So what do I do now? Like,
what do I do?
Like, should I build something? Like, everyone's like, you should build these like crazy machines you see on Twitter or not Twitter, but like on the YouTube and stuff like that. And I'm like, I guess I could do that. It just seems like what would be the point is to make more stuff so I can make more things. And like, I know there's like alchemy and magic, and I guess there's a final boss you can beat. So I'm like, I guess I should
stuff. Yeah.
I need to, maybe somebody in the audience can give me help with this. I need to start a Minecraft playthrough where there's a point, like where I have like a thing to do and suggest what I should actually do.
Okay.
With Minecraft, because I like surviving. I like building stuff, but I like building stuff more in like building hyper efficient mines or building like machines that auto harvest or things like that, rather than like I'm gonna make the Enterprise or whatever. And I would love and I'd love to like do all of that for some kind of end. And my guess is that someone's going to recommend a mod that probably like makes the game a whole lot more difficult to like, fight your way through and stuff like that. And that might be
something interesting. I was thinking the opposite, where someone would recommend a mod that would make it easier to make things. Like, I know there are mods that let you like copy paste big blocks of stuff to like, if you're building something, you can do it faster and things like that. But no, I think yours, because you want more of like a gameplay thing, whereas like for me, I'm still in that like it's like Lego. Yeah, it's like digital Lego. That's interesting. Did you play Animal Crossing at all? I did play Animal Crossing at all, and I came to the exact same problem, which was I was wondering. I played it for a little bit until I realized that every single day was turning into a wrote lists of tasks where I was going. My main two goals were, one, because we only have one Switch in our house, trolling Kelly, my wife, because she had a nice pretty island, and so I just filled my corner of the island with like literal trash and tried to make it look like an absolute garbage town. And then two was to maximize the developing of all of the friends and like making sure that I could get all of the resources that you need. And then I was like obsessed with like making sure I can get everything that belongs in the museum so that I could because there's like seasonality to it. So like making sure you optimize getting all of those at the right time. But at the end of the day, it was all for developing furniture for building out a thing. And I have never felt super engaged with I've never felt super engaged with games where like the point is where you can decorate your space and make it look like anything you want, because I don't know, for some reason that just does not push, even though the fact that I consider myself a very creative person, that doesn't juice for me with video games. That's okay. I've never been into The Sims, but Emily's been all about that's like the game that she plays more than anything. She doesn't play it every day, but like there'll be stretches of time where she'll be like, I'm going to sit here and play The Sims. And I just don't get it.
Is she aware that there's a new Sims-like game coming out that's made by the people who, or it's published at least, by the same people who make Paradox games, like Paradox Interactive, which makes the like hardcore history sim type strategy games.
Almost
they're
certainly she's
publishing
aware.
a game that's like it, and it's going to be like The Sims, except that they're not going to like fill your shit with tons of like DLC, and it's like much more about simulationist stuff and really open for plugins and add-ons and stuff like that. And
interesting.
If she's not aware of this, I think it's called Life by You. It's in production now, but it feels like a thing that maybe she'd like.
Well, I'll let her know. I was joking earlier when I said this was a video game podcast.
Yeah, but this is actually a podcast
through it.
But this is a podcast called It's Probably Not Aliens, where we talk about ancient aliens, ancient astronaut theory, pseudo-history, pseudo-archaeology, UFOs, UAPs, and an increasing list of things that are kind of just conspiracies and bad things, but in science fiction-y type direction.
They're all connected. They're all connected usually by the TV show Ancient Aliens, which we go through and sort of look at and debunk some of their claims. So if they're talking about it, we're talking about it. And if they're not talking about it, but it interests us, we're still talking about it. That's how this podcast works. My name is Scott. I don't know anything. I don't know why we were talking about Minecraft and video games for so long. That was Tristan's idea. Maybe he'll tell me.
There's a point. My name is Tristan Johnson. I am your diamond pick into the depths of bad history and bad archaeology and such.
That sounds good.
Yeah, but today we are continuing. We've been delving through this series,
like a mine.
This episode of Ancient Aliens that goes into the concept of underground aliens, and we are going into a new place. I think that we've never been to Turkey before, but we will definitely come back several times because there's a handful of...
Tis this season. It's just about to be American Thanksgiving here. How can we not go to Turkey?
In mid-December.
That's okay. At the time of recording, we have a week until American Thanksgiving, so my mind is already on Turkey. Do you think people from Turkey hate when people are like, oh, like the food, like the bird, turkey that people eat?
Probably, just because Turks, Turks are a very proud people. But it's funny because Turkey in like I think it's in like Turkey in French is dind, which is actually supposed to be like a reference to Hindi, and I'm pretty sure that the word turkey in Turkish is like Hindi or something like that. So they pass the buck on to someone else. That's funny. But yeah, but Turkey is like an ancient land. It has been the host of several places. It's literally been the seat of of two of like the biggest empires in human history, the Romans and the Ottomans, and is just like it's a very fascinating place and has been the home of many bits of pseudo archaeology and pseudo history. And this is just our first time going there.
Yeah, and it sounds like the home of aliens, underground subterranean aliens.
Yeah. So first, though, we need to talk about people who don't live in Turkey, which was the ancient Zoroastrian Empire. So here's what millions of people around the world believe.
Millions of people.
Yeah.
Yes.
That Zoroastrian religion has a connection. The Zoroastrian Empire has a connection through its doctrines, like its official like canon and its like its belief system, to a place called Derinkuyu, which is this underground city in Turkey. That's the connection here. Is that it's underground, and it's a city that's got dug out of the ground. That's cool. That's why I did Minecraft.
That's it. I gotcha. I see. That's why we're talking about Minecraft. Are there cities underground in Minecraft?
I mean, you could probably make it. And also there's all those like dungeons and caves and stuff. So according to this, Ahura Mazda, who's the chief god in the Zoroastrian faith, is said to have instructed followers to build an underground city to survive a global ice age.
Ooh.
And they believe that this points to not only that Derinkuyu is this city, but that there are several cities all over the world, including in the Americas, that also reference doing this for this time, which implies that if it's an ice age, they are much, much older, having their ties to the Pleistocene rather than like, the actual age of these things as we know them today. and that Ahura Mazda, the god of the Zoroastrian religion, is actually somebody who had some kind of knowledge about climatology and all those things that would then...
Knew the weather, could predict it. That sounds pretty powerful.
So then, in the show, they speculate that Ahura Mazda was actually this intelligent extraterrestrial force that tried to save the Ice Age humans by making them basically get into like fallout bunkers and wait out the Ice Age, and maybe even help them build places like Derinkuyu.
Yeah.
And that it is like, and either that it is, there's speculation that it was for the Ice Age, but there's also speculation that it was like a literal fallout shelter because there was going to be extraterrestrial battles or aerial bombardments that they had to get away from. And again, they make a legend also. They make connections also that Native Americans also have legends about underground worlds and beings that suggest there's a link between these two stories. And that there's also other underground cities that also could be linked to this. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about Derinkuyu, the underground city, this marvel of ancient engineering, and how, and if this has any connection to hidden civilizations, alien refuges, or like Native American mythical underground worlds, that kind of stuff. So
just a quick clarification, because I've not heard of this place. This is a real underground?
It's a real ass
city, right?
Yeah, it's
okay.
Really,
it's not
really
like
cool
in
place.
Atlantis. It's not like in Atlantis where people are like, it's a sunken city and we'll find it or whatever. This is a real legitimate underground city.
Yeah, it's like one of the biggest tourist destinations in Cappadocia, which is a region in Turkey.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's so cool. An underground city that's real. That's awesome.
Yeah, and I can't wait to tell you all about it. That's where we're going to start.
I'm excited to learn more about it now that I know it's real.
Good thing we have a podcast where I just explain things to you.
That's great. And I did start recording, which is great, which is excellent.
Yeah, the last time.
I recorded a little bit earlier when we were talking about Minecraft for a little bit too long, but that's okay. I'm sure we'll edit that out.
It's funny because we recently, like 2 weeks ago, spent like 4 days with each other, basically all day, every day. And we learned very quickly that our dynamic in real life is not dissimilar to the podcast, where it is a lot of me just saying a lot of shit at you while you go, interesting.
That's true. It is very much that. I'm a very like introspective person where I like to just like hear what people are saying. And if I don't really have anything to add, I'll just be like, huh, neat.
And I am the most quintessential extrovert who doesn't quite get people's social cues to shut up and loves to info dump. So
it was a fun time.
Yeah.
Can I tell you really quickly? We'll get into the topic. I might even edit this out. But my favorite part of that is we were also traveling with your parents too. And like, I'm very introverted. So I get like very exhausted when I spend time socializing. And at the end of like day 1 or 2, it was just like a lot of what you just said, like you just like talking and like your parents talking, but it was a lot of hanging out with you and a lot of you talking at me, and it was great. But then you were like, I was like, yeah, I'm just exhausted because I just get exhausted with socializing. And you were like, yeah, my parents can be a lot. And I was like, Tristan, it's not your parents, buddy.
Fair. Yeah, fair. You know what? I earned that. That is a thing I am working on. I get it.
It was great. I loved it. I loved every second of it.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about this. Let's go to underground into Derinkuyu. So here I want to tell you I want to start off with a little bit of a story. So this place had been lost to history for a long time, right? Like we did not know that it existed. And I find like, just try to put yourself in this guy's situation. We go to Turkey in 1963. A local man in Cappadocia is trying to renovate his house.
Okay.
And then digs behind a wall and finds a mysterious room.
Huh, this is a weird room.
Yes. And then as he digs, he finds more rooms. And eventually archaeologists involved. And what it turns into is an 18-story deep underground city that probably could have held as many as 20,000 people within it at a certain point.
This is, you know what I'm picturing? Did you ever see the movie? It came out, I think, last year, Barbarian, the horror movie.
No, I didn't see it.
There's a really funny moment where Justin Long is in it, and it's sort of similar to this, where he owns like an Airbnb, and then he discovers there's like a secret tunnel system and like additional rooms that he didn't know about. And instead of being creeped out about it, he like Googles like, hey, could I increase the rent that people are paying because there's more square footage technically now. Like, it's just like a really funny comedic feat. And that's what I'm picturing now as I'm putting myself into this guy's shoes. I'm digging. I'm trying to, renovate my home. I'm just like, ooh, there's some more rooms. Ooh, I bet that means, this will be good for guests. This will be good if I ever want to rent the place out. More square footage. This is great. This is delightful for me. Oh no, these archaeologists are here. They're ruining it. This is my home.
Yeah, it's true. I don't know how that. I don't like. Honestly, every time I hear the story of Derinkuyu's discovery or rediscovery, I should say, they never name or talk in too much detail about the guy who actually found it by renovating his house. But yeah, I can imagine that. It's like, hey, that's my house. Just because my house got expanded to an entire new city doesn't mean you can just take it away.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this city is located near the modern town of Derinkuyu, which is in Nevşehir. Nevşehir? Sorry, it's Turkish. So, okay. Nevşehir. Turkey.
Okay. I trust you.
Nevşehir. Okay, because the thing is, like, the H sound is weird in Turkish, and so I'm trying to, like, put that together. Anyways.
It's not weird to them, Tristan.
I know. It's weird to my ears. Anyways, as they excavated, they found this whole tunnel network and found this underground city. It was fully formed during the Byzantine era, which was when this was the seat of basically the Roman Empire, when it was Greek Orthodox and such, and was heavily used as a place for Christian, Greek, because like this is another hidden history of this place, is that a lot of today, that is Turkey, had a like pretty significant Greek population. And it was, and after World War I, there was like a population exchange, which is a really nice way of saying ethnic cleansing campaign between Greece and Turkey, where the Greeks basically kicked all of the Turks out of Greece, and the Turks kicked all the Greeks out of Turkey, and they had to like swap. So in this period, there was a time where there were Christians living in this area that had found themselves regularly attacked by Arabs, Muslims during a period of warfare called the Arab-Byzantine Wars. This roughly is in the period of the year 780 to 1180 AD. So it's like 400-year period, basically very early Islam, like 780, like Islam's only about 100 years old at that point. So like
these
very
are confusing
early
dates. These are confusing dates to say out loud because it's 780 to 1180 AD. So it's 780 AD to 1180 AD.
Yeah, true.
Some of those ADs are numbers. Some of those ADs are letters.
Let's actually do the correct thing and say 780 CE to 1180 CE.
There we go. We
can use the common era instead of Anno Domini.
Good enough. The year of our Lord 780.
So on top of that, the city had connections to another underground city called Kaymakli through about 8 or 9 kilometers of tunnels. So like this is actually like a huge find. The artifacts in these underground settlements belong to what they guess is like the Middle Byzantine period, which is between the 5th and 10th centuries, which fits with what we're saying here. And it again is 18 stories deep. It contains wells, chapels, stables, schools. Estimates show that it could have held up to 20,000 people inside.
Dang, this place is big.
Yeah. So instead of just being like a fallout shelter to protect from Arab raiders, it also looks like it was a fully functional city at a certain point.
It's just an underground city.
Yeah. And today is, again, one of the biggest tourist attractions in Cappadocia, which makes sense because, like, if I was in Cappadocia, this is the thing I'd want to go see. It's obviously also just a remarkable piece of engineering. It has ventilation systems because, you can't really have 20,000 people underground without having very sophisticated systems to make sure that fresh air gets in and
you gotta
bad air
make
gets
sure
out.
People breathe. Yeah,
because like carbon dioxide buildups, because carbon dioxide's heavier than regular air, so you have to find a way to get the carbon dioxide out of the hole and new oxygen in.
That's true, and it's like, well, you could have plants, but then the plants need light too.
Exactly.
So it's very complicated when you think about it.
And water systems. They had to have a whole system of wells, cisterns, and channels to make sure that they could collect and distribute water throughout the city. So the reason why they were able to make something like this is because it's made from volcanic rock. And volcanic rock is very soft, very easy to carve and craft through. You don't need a diamond pick for this. You can get away with probably stone or steel. Or that's another more Minecraft thing.
I don't have this anymore, but I used to have a ball of volcanic stone. I can't remember where I got it from, but I liked it a lot. It was very cool. I don't know if it was just mine or if it's all of it, but it was very porous as well.
Yeah. And so it shows like, it's very soft rock. It's very easy to carve things out of. And so this is why it's really easy to find caves and such. Wait,
so does that mean it was in or near a volcano? Or
probably at some point. The thing is that like Turkey is a very tectonically active area. So if there isn't like active volcanoes, there definitely is like a lot of like, volcano like things. If you know that like the Eastern Mediterranean regularly gets earthquakes. Turkey very recently this year had a horrible earthquake.
Yeah,
and
that's right.
Usually you find fault lines for earthquakes, you're going to find volcanoes, or at least former volcanoes.
That's fair. I thought because it would have been even. I mean, this place is already cool. How much cooler it would have been
if
like
it was volcano
also,
layer.
It is a volcano layer, an active city volcano layer.
That would be pretty cool.
That's so cool.
But yeah, like, and there's an even more clever things. Like the thing is that like building underground is super difficult. Again, dealing with water, both getting it in and keeping it out. If you ever have to dig underground, you realize that a lot of the effort then turns into just pumping out all of the groundwater that you dig up. Also, dealing with oxygen.
How hard could it be? How hard could it be though? Elon Musk is doing it to a roaring success, I would say. No complaints about underground tunnels or anything like that. Yeah. Everyone loves them and they're great, and they're definitely not a safety hazard or a bad idea.
Now, I will say, the sort of what's it called? His like Hyperloop stuff is very stupid. The Boring Company also kind of stupid. But the concept of like what he uses is these earth boring machines that actually like other companies, like he didn't invent them. He just bought a bunch of them because they're used to
Tristan,
make.
He has not invented anything.
No,
he doesn't invent anything.
Yeah,
That's
he has some partial credit on some patent that has to do with like the Tesla Model 3, but honestly, it's like almost nothing.
Yeah.
Anyway, he bought like this. He bought a bunch of these like boring machines that are designed to make like tunnels for things like underground driving and stuff like that, and then had a kind of clever answer, which is that one of the things that those things have is that they end up with like a bunch of soil at the end, and you don't know what to do with it. And his plan was to turn it into bricks, but I don't know how well that actually worked out. But that was the concept.
Oh anyway. Yeah, I think there was an episode of Some More News about it where Dr. Cody Justin was like, "Hey Elon, it really sounds like you're trying to say you want to sell dirt to poor people." I don't know if that's the best way to phrase it, but that was years ago.
But those machines are really cool. Like, I don't know if you've ever seen them, but they're like they're almost like giant like mechanical worms with like this flat front that like grinds. You have to fill it with like clay and stuff like that so that it doesn't jam. But they're really cool machines, and use them to make like subway tunnels and anything. Anyways,
cool.
They didn't have that, and so they had to like. Digging underground, like you have to deal with the water thing. You have to deal with the air thing because, as I said, carbon dioxide heavier than air. So like very often in like, say, mines, right? Like at the very deep parts of mines in like olden times, you might have places where there's not enough air to breathe. And you'll find like people who like suffocate at the bottom of these mines because the CO2 just like builds up at the bottom and they die. And also there's
everyone just like walked around on stilts. Was that the solution?
Usually.
You just got to be higher.
Yeah, you have to make things like the what's it called? The tunnels have to be like extremely long and tall so you can get through them.
So you can just walk on, you can float above the carbon dioxide. Yeah, that makes sense to me. God, why did we both say that at the same time?
Yeah. The other thing is actual structural integrity. Building underground is really hard. This is why we don't have lots of underground cities. You know, they require like
it's difficult.
If you were to build a 10-story building versus a 10-story like underground complex, the underground complex infinitely more expensive and difficult to make.
Challenging.
Yeah, especially because of just structural integrity. And Derinkuyu has all sorts of support columns and arches that distribute weight and these circular patterns of carving out areas to prevent stress concentration, all meant to prevent cave-ins. So it's also clever in that sense.
Very clever. So would the fact that the volcanic rock is like easy to carve and a little bit soft, would that have made it trickier, or like, because it feels like in my head that would have made it less like wouldn't be able to hold up as much weight above it and things like that. But I don't know.
It's much more. It's much like less a thing about weight as it is about like shape and architecture. Like a lot of the sort of support beams that held up in a lot of mines were made of like wood, so you can like do that kind of stuff. And also using like arches and like sort of those and designed to spread out stress.
Yeah,
because basically all that happens is that you digging in the rock starts to create instabilities if you don't shape things correctly.
So just more smart stuff.
Mm-hmm. So that's like the marvel that is Derinkuyu. It's an absolute archaeological marvel of engineering.
Yes.
There are some interesting mysteries too about Derinkuyu. We actually don't know what it was temporarily, like what it was actually made for originally, and also who made them or when. These are still question marks.
Is it possible that they just thought it would be cool?
Maybe. That's a lot of work for something that's cool. And there are way easier ways to build homes and things like that. And also, this is a place that gets earthquakes, so it's not exactly the safest place to also...
I didn't say it would be better. Yeah. I said it would be cool.
I mean... The coolness factor usually doesn't show up a whole lot in archaeological discussions, but it is really cool. So there is that aspect to it. But the idea is that, like, because of the Byzantines definitely greatly expanded it and really made it more sophisticated, but it's definitely, there are signs that it is not the original creators. And some archaeologists speculate that the oldest parts of it might be as old as 4,000 years old, dug by Hittites, who are the people who lived in that time. More conservative people believe that it might be the Phrygians, who existed there around maybe 2,700 years ago.
Okay.
But then,
so just like there's so much we don't know about. We don't even know who did it.
Yeah. And even more local, like even more conservative archaeologists would argue that Christians built the city even as late as the first centuries of the Common Era. So like, the first and second, like the years, like, where the years still had double digits and stuff like that.
Oof.
Yeah. But then what we do know the most about is the Byzantine, like the sort of Greek Orthodox or at least like, Greek Christians who expanded and turned it into a full ass city, using it as protections against Muslim Arabs during the Arab-Byzantine Wars. And again, from like the 8th to 12th century.
Gotcha.
And that further times, as this region became more and more Muslim majority, early Christians would use these tunnels to escape persecution when they were being raided by the Umayyad and Abbasid caliphates, which are basically like the Umayyads and the Abbasids are like early Islamic Empire dynasties, basically.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Lots of history today.
Mm-hmm. And furthermore, when it wasn't being used as a place to hide from raiders, in the Byzantine era, there's also evidence that it was likely used to store goods. So it was also just like an underground storage area.
Just like a little underground shed.
Yeah, it's like your basement, like everyone's basement.
Yeah.
Your basement is where you work.
You know how your basement can fit 20,000 people in it?
Mine can.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
You got a lot going on. Why are you in this one little room filming? You could have a whole city to film in down in your basement.
No Wi-Fi though. Yeah. I need to get some of those like expanders, but you know how power is an issue in my house.
Well, that's what they don't talk about back in Derinkuyu either. They didn't talk about how bad the Wi-Fi was.
It's true. That's why they left. They're like, we're going to be underground here hiding from raiders, but there's no Wi-Fi. My cell phone gets no reception down here. There's like,
how am I supposed to know if it's safe outside?
Yeah. Who am I going to text to find out if the Abbasids had run away?
Yeah. I'll do it.
Yeah. So and the other thing too is the city was equipped with all sorts of amenities that was available to anybody who lived on the surface. Again,
I mean, other than Wi-Fi, as we discussed.
Other than Wi-Fi, it did have like living quarters, air shafts, water channels, even shrines and churches. The social organization probably also seemed to have a lot of hygiene, because if you want to live in a cave, you have to live like ultra hygienically, or else the smells. And like, as you can imagine, also just like dealing with waste products and garbage and stuff like that. If you don't deal with that in an underground situation, it can get way worse, way faster.
Yes. I can imagine. Mm-hmm. It gets smelly, gets noxious. Yeah. Gotta keep it clean down there.
To the point where it's like, it could be literally dangerous if you don't.
Deadly.
Despite that, they even had things that like we would think of as like real, like things you wouldn't expect to find in a cave, like churches, livestock stalls, wine cellars, and even schools.
To be in the mind of like a cow,
underground cow,
this is not where I'm supposed to be. Why am I here? Why have they brought me here?
Yeah, this is not grass at all.
No, where is the sun? I don't know.
Just this like night seasonal has been affective so disordered cows.
This night will never end.
Oh my god. Yeah. It's like this is the other, like, Minecraft was like the more accessible answer I'd went with, because the game that is much more Tristan's jam would be Dwarf Fortress, which actually Minecraft was inspired by, but is also one of the most insane video games ever created. And it's also about like, there's a lot of like, in that game, there's a lot of like having livestock underground. And I'm like, how do these chickens that have never seen the sun feel?
We'll never know. To be inside of their mind.
Yeah. And also that Derinkuyu, like, there is some evidence that it was definitely used to protect against raiders. For example, this is terrifying, but the inside, the entrance to the outside had large rolling stone doors, and had and every floor had like these kind of like rolling stone doors that could seal off any level. So it was definitely like a security feature designed to protect against something.
Yeah.
It also had hidden passages and escape routes that allowed inhabitants to flee in case they were attacked. And all of that stuff indicates that they definitely were dealing with significant threats and external forces. So basically, if you think about it, there was this village of Greek Christians that were regularly experiencing invasions or raids by specifically Arab Muslims, and they needed to find a place to regularly go to hide when they were being attacked. And so this place shows that this was a very serious threat, to the point where they dug an entire underground city, or more likely expanded on another underground city and turned it into a whole thing so that they could hide out. So, because like this is a pretty long way to go. So the fact that they have all these security features and this much expansion and elaboration means that they probably used it a lot.
It definitely feels like, I don't know. I mean, like the fact that it's like a whole city is so interesting to me, because if it started, I could imagine it starting as just like a safety thing, and then it's like, well, we're down here so much, we should just build all these other things. We should get a church down here, and we should get some other stuff down here, and just like, you know, if we have to be down here for a while, let's at least make it a little let's make it like the Up, but down.
Yeah. And apparently they even had like temporary graveyards and stuff like that to manage people who died down there. Cause
you're already underground, just leave them there.
I guess.
That's where the bodies go.
You can imagine that also when it comes to like sanitation and stuff and health, like you can imagine that also would be quite a challenge. Because
I guess that's why they were temporary, right?
Yeah.
You'd have to like, not in this city, we got to put them somewhere else.
Yeah, you have to bury them above ground at some point, because this was basically designed like if they were being under siege. So if they knew that Arabs were raiding the region before they could get to whatever town they were in, they would all move into the underground thing. And when the Arabs showed up at the town, they would find that it was empty, and maybe didn't go looking for them. And then they were just prepared to like hide down there until, you know, maybe they'd send out scouts and see that the Arabs had moved on to another region, and then they'd be able to come out again. Which, if you think about it, could be a long time. For like, how long is it until like the sort of raiders in your region have moved on? It's pretty intense. Then we also have to go into the other aspect of the claim, which is the stuff about Ahura Mazda and Zoroastrianism. So I also have to probably just point out here that I have referenced several times on this podcast, and we'll get into this more in depth on a corrections episode in the future, that I referenced in Zoroastrianism a concept of a character named Mithra, which is not a Zoroastrian figure. That's actually like a sort of Roman cult that started later. But the chief creator god of Zoroastrianism is Ahura Mazda. And there is, and so you guys know, Ahura Mazda is the supreme creator deity in a religion called Zoroastrianism, which primarily traces its roots to ancient Persia, Persia being basically modern day Iran. So the founder of Zoroastrianism was a man by the name of Zoroaster, who proclaimed that Ahura Mazda was the supreme creator, the creative and sustaining force of the universe through Asha, and that human beings are given a choice between supporting Ahura Mazda or not, making them ultimately responsible for their own choices. So like basically like free will and choice is like a big part of Zoroastrianism. According to their cosmology, Ahura Mazda made the ultimate triumph of good against evil, which was called the Angra Mainyo. And in a Zoroastrian text called the Vandidad, there is a person named King Yima who builds an underground city on the orders of Ahura Mazda to protect his people from a long-lasting climate of ice. This is true. So is this Derinkuyu?
Is this Derinkuyu? Is this aliens? How did they have this knowledge of an ice age? The movie.
Well, okay. Yeah, they saw the movie, and that's how they got ready.
They were like, Ray Romano told me I gotta get ready.
Oh my God, I forgot he's in that. Is that going to be Ray Romano's legacy? Everyone's going to forget Everyone Loves Raymond. They're just going to remember him as the mammoth from the Ice Age movies. Because I feel like anybody under 40 probably doesn't remember Everybody Loves Raymond, the sort of C plus sitcom from the late 90s, early 2000s.
I can't say out of that show and those movies, I can't name a third Ray Romano thing. So
he was a stand-up comic
probably it
for a long time, but not one that people remember, obviously.
Yeah, but yeah.
Okay.
Anyway.
Yeah. So is there any evidence that Derinkuyu is connected to this story, which would have been from the Zoroastrian Empire? But
I gotta know.
The problem is that there's basically no evidence. Like, this is again what would be called circumstantial evidence. This is thing looks like a thing. This story looks like mentions an underground city, and Derinkuyu is an underground
related.
City. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the thing is that there's no real, you'd be surprised to know that there's no archaeological evidence that shows that the Zoroastrian Empire was in Cappadocia, or that extraterrestrials had any role in the construction of Derinkuyu, or that they would be necessary, because it would be. I
am surprised to know that. You're right.
Yeah. It's very true that we have a pretty decent idea of how it was constructed. It was very clever, but it did not require anything very sophisticated or science fiction in order to make. But I feel like that's almost like a pedestrian claim by this point in the show. 100 and something episodes need to be yeah, people can totally have built that. But the big thing would be the fact that the Zoroastrians weren't there. That Turkey and Iran do border each other, but you'd have to be pretty far away from the sort of homeland of the Zoroastrians to really take Derinkuyu as a big place, or as a place where this stuff happened.
Gotcha. So these are these feel totally different groups of people.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, totally different is a little they're close-ish.
They're different.
Yes.
They are different.
Yes. And there's also no evidence that there's not a ton of evidence that that there was the Zoroastrian Empire. We have a very solid idea of where it was and where they operated, and Cappadocia was not one of those places.
No. Okay.
Yes.
So already off to a bad start.
Yes. There's also this other part where they talk about in the episode about how Native American mythology has this whole idea of there being underground worlds. And is that also Derinkuyu? Is that also these sort of underground cities of people hiding away from bombardment? And, there is a very superficial, coincidental similarity between Derinkuyu and the legends of Native Americans, specifically that there are places underground that people live in.
Yeah, sure.
And then I had to look into what is this Native American stuff? And I looked it up, and it comes from a various different national and tribal understandings of the past. But basically that there are legends in Native American myth about underground worlds. And then when I looked into it, it sounded literally nothing like what they're talking about. How it's conceived of in Native American myth is that there are vast networks of tunnels and chambers underneath the whole world that acted as refuges during various times for natural disasters and hiding places from enemies. The closest I can think of is the Underdark from Dungeons and Dragons.
I was thinking that too. So it felt like they're saying that these things naturally exist, and they weren't like the way that Derinkuyu is built by people. That this idea, the Native American stuff, is they've always been here, these tunnels and these things, and we can use them to our advantage.
Yeah, so it's a legendary land, an underground world.
Yeah.
But there's no details that imply that has anything to do with Derinkuyu. There's no similarities except that underground.
Underground. would you believe that on the planet Earth, multiple civilizations thought of the idea that there could be something under?
Yeah, especially
that's wild.
The Earth, the Earth is full of cave systems that are very, big and complicated and dark and hard to explore. And you can imagine that many civilizations, if they ever saw a cave system near them, that it'd be very easy to imagine, because you can't really explore it all, especially if you don't have artificial light, that there would be this whole
it could go on forever.
World. Yeah. There's also like Derinkuyu is an underground city, but there are also others. We talked about Kaimakli, which is also in the Cappadocia region. It's actually pretty close to Derinkuyu. And again, probably built around the same time, probably for similar reasons. There's also in South Australia, Cooper Petty, which this is also going to be a little bit of like a heartfelt send off. Two of my two closest, bestest best friends in town here, my real life best friends, recently moved to Australia, and we miss them dearly. But also in southern Australia, Cooper Petty is an underground town that was built to escape the harsh desert climate. A town that is known for having opal mines and is a tourist destination as well. Neu, which is in France, is a underground city that was used as a hiding place during the 100 Years' War. You're starting to you might notice a pattern here about why people build these things.
Maybe for conflict and safety and wars.
The 100 Years' War was, of course, a 100 and something, I think it was 104-year-old conflict that happened between France and England. Where basically the King of England believed that he had claims over parts of France, and France was like, no, actually. There's this whole complicated thing where the King of England also was a duke in the French kingdom system, and it led to this series of conflicts, and it ended with
it's complicated.
It ended with the British losing. Or the English losing because of...
we love to see it. We love to see it, especially right here. Me in America, love to see it.
There is the downside of the British losing, which is the French winning. But that's what that's what Joan of Arc was all about. It was rediscovered in the 19th century and is now a tourist destination. In Beijing, underneath the streets of Beijing, there's an underground city that was built during the Cold War as a shelter in case of a nuclear attack.
All right. More wartime things.
In fact, actually, most of the time, if you look at various different underground cities, you find that they tend to all be linked to things that aren't necessarily, supernatural bombardment or Cold Wars, but things like war, natural disasters, harsh weather conditions.
The earth will protect me.
And there are several times that this shows up, and it's a reason why people do this, and it's a simple solution to a problem that everybody various problems that many people experience.
Very much so.
So I'm going to talk I have a little bit more to talk about when it comes to the peoples and that they are trying to attribute this to. But first, would you like a product?
I'm feeling more in the mood for maybe a service. I could go either way, product or service.
Well, let's play a little stinger music and talk about product or service.
Do it.
Oh, that was some good service.
I loved it.
That was great. Let's talk a little bit about Zoroastrianism. I think Zoroastrianism is another religion that becomes used fairly often by pseudo-archaeologists because it is this mythical religion from the deep past that's associated with lots of ancient societies in Mesopotamia and such that often have their myths attributed to ancient aliens. And it's a really interesting kind of ancient faith that was and also very often gets brought out because a lot of the reason why there aren't a ton more Zoroastrians today is because of basically they fell to Muslim invaders in the early years of the Islamic Empire. And so a lot of times it's also used out to make Muslims into punching bags, which is common time.
But like that.
So Zoroastrianism has its dates all the way back to the 6th century BCE. So very, very old.
Very old.
Older than Christianity, older than Islam.
Older than you and me.
Slightly.
Barely.
My birthday is in 11 days, so maybe slightly older than me. I'm thinking about it a bit as I turn the big old 3-5.
You're doing great.
Yeah.
You look great.
Thank you. Zoroastrianism is a complex religion that has this dualistic cosmology of good and evil. It sees things as this sort of monotheistic idea that there is this this god of good and this force of evil, and that your job is to basically embrace good and conquer evil.
Yes.
Dualism, I think, is the big term that it comes up. It teaches that the world is being fought over by two great powers: the god of goodness, honesty, and truth, and a god of evil, deceit, and lies.
Cool. I like that one. That one sounds rad. I like that god.
Mm-hmm. And that also, when you go to the afterlife, you are weighed based on your balance of good and evil deeds to find out what happens to you.
So if you do more good than bad, you're all square.
Exactly. You can start to see that also a lot of like Abrahamic religions might have taken some notes of inspiration from this. Zoroastrianism exalts that an uncreated and benevolent deity of wisdom known as Ahura Mazda, which translates to Lord of Wisdom, and exalts them as a supreme being. But there's also a hierarchy of gods, deities, and other divine entities. But there's a consistent pattern. The more powerful the entity is, the more high in the position of hierarchy it is. So there's like this whole power hierarchy of things.
Gotcha. You're more powerful, you're higher up. You're cooler.
Yeah.
You're better.
Zoroastrianism also has a high emphasis on individual and social responsibility. They have the threefold path of
I don't
Asha.
want responsibility, Tristan. Boo.
Yeah, this is what's it called? Uncle Ben's religion.
Boo.
But the main thing at the core is something called the threefold path of Asha, which is basically living a life of good thoughts, good words, and good deeds. Which feels I can roll with that.
I can roll with that.
Yeah, and also a heavy emphasis on actions like spreading happiness, charity, and respecting the spiritual equality and duty of both men and women. So
that sounds awesome.
There's a spiritual equality to men and women. Yeah.
Yeah.
It has its own mythology and cosmology, and also includes an underground world as part of it. Zoroastrianism, in the past, acted as the spiritual justification for the expansion of the ancient Persian Empire, that there were many big kings that believed that they were the representatives on Earth of Ahura Mazda, and that the expansion of the empire would bring the final triumph of good over evil. So kings sponsored Zoroastrian temples, which were called ziggurats, and expanded the faith in at least part because it supported them. Their priests, which were called magi. Now you're starting to see where like all of like, you can see like this stuff shows up in the Bible, like the three magi, or three, which got turned into three wise men, but magi is the term for a Zoroastrian priest. Also, for all of you fantasy nerds, that's where like mage comes from. A mage was a term for a Zoroastrian priest.
Oh.
So as you can probably guess, that Zoroastrianism was very influential over other religions that took notes from them.
It sounds like it, yeah.
You can see that that Abrahamic faiths, because as when the Jews were in exile in the Iron Age, they spent a bunch of time in the Persian Empire, and so Zoroastrianism definitely had its impact, and it had its impact on Christianity. But even in more like recent ones, like the Gnostics, which are a sort of sect, or were a sect, I don't think there's really that many of them anymore, a sect of Christians that believed a lot. Like it was like Christianity where like dualism was like a big deal, where like God and Satan were like two almost equal forces at war with each other over the fate of the world.
Yeah.
That plays like a big part, where they like the monad and the demiurge and like all sorts of crazy stuff. There's also a branch of Buddhism that definitely traces some inspiration to stuff that comes from Zoroastrianism, and also Greek philosophy. A lot of Greek philosophy has influence from Zoroastrian teachings, as much as 300 and Frank Miller might want to not admit. There's a lot of influence that like the Persians and like Zoroastrianism and the East had over Greek philosophy. And it also means that it was all speaking in a similar language, so that when Islam showed up, Islam had basically devoured the Zoroastrian religion largely, and so they also internalized a bunch of stuff from it, but then also internalized a bunch of stuff from Greek philosophy. And I've talked on this show many times about how like the Islamic like law and philosophy and religious scholarship is heavily influenced by like Greek philosophy and such. So Today, though, like here's the main thing is like it almost gets talked about in past tense, but Zoroastrianism still exists.
It's still happening.
Oftentimes, Zoroastrians today are called Parsis, and they still exist primarily in Iran and India, but there are diaspora Zoroastrian communities in the US, in Canada, and Australia, and the United Kingdom. It's gone under many changes and under many, many different cultural and historical contexts, but their dualistic cosmology of good and evil within the framework of monotheism still exists. It still is at the core of their thing, and still they believe in Ahura Mazda as a supreme being. One of the things that probably sticks out the most about them, that they're probably most known for, is that they have some very peculiar funerary practices. One of the main things that they have a lot of veneration for are like the prime four elements, like, earth, fire, water, air. That all comes from Zoroastrianism too.
Thank you.
And they have a belief that it is like improper for when, or at least they've moved a lot on this because it's pretty hard to do in cultures that don't accept it. But they have funerary practices where they do not want to, sully any of these elements with the dead, which means that they can't bury them, they can't burn them, and they can't put them at sea or anything like that. So what they
can't shoot them in the air. They can't scatter them through the sky.
Well,
I was trying to think of what the air one could be.
Yeah. Well, the one that they actually do, or at least that they used to do, because it's not really a common practice or a legal practice much anymore, was something called excarnation, or in their own language was called dokumenshini, or what we probably more know today as sky burial. What this is when you take a building that's called the Tower of Silence, and you would put the deceased on this structure where they would be exposed to the elements and basically allowed to be eaten by scavengers, specifically like birds and buzzards and stuff like that. Because then,
you know what?
They would not contaminate the dead.
Return me to nature. That's what it's about.
Mm-hmm.
Let me nourish the earth with my body.
Yeah.
I'm done with it. I don't need it anymore. Mm-hmm. Let other people have it.
In more recent
Let the birds
days,
have it.
Zoroastrianism has adopted many of the funerary practices of the countries they live in. In India, where cremation is the norm, they tend to now cremate their dead. In many countries, like in Canada, the US, and the UK, they tend to bury their dead. Although some more observant have gone to some interesting lengths. And one of the ones that is an interesting engineering thing is that there is a form of Zoroastrian cremation that is designed by putting them in a room that doesn't have any fire, or putting them in like a sort of casket that doesn't have any fire, but just gets so hot that they basically disintegrate to ash.
Hot.
So it doesn't contaminate the fire, but it does take care of their remains.
You get baked.
Yeah, basically. You get baked so hot that you turn to basically ash.
That's kind of neat though.
Yeah.
It's neat engineering.
Yeah.
Of like not direct fire, but we'll bake you at 400 degrees for a couple hours. You'll be perfect.
At 400 for yeah. As far as I know, though, it's one of those things where like that's a very intense technological solution for a religion that has somewhere between 1 and 200,000 followers in the whole world.
Yes, so not necessarily a lot of people doing.
Yeah, not a hot market, but but there is some talk about this, that specific type of way of cremation being a future way that we do cremations that don't involve creating a whole lot of carbon dioxide waste and burning a bunch of fuel. So it could be a future of like an electric cremation that might help them out. That might also follow their funerary practices. So that works.
I dig it.
Yeah.
All right. Cool.
And again, there's Native American mythology that talks about legends of underground worlds. I'll go into this very briefly because I just want to get a little bit of juice on this, but many different nations bring this up about there being a vast network of places to go. Some mention that there is, that these places have their own animals and plants and people, but that their seasons are different down there. And things like Lovelock Cave make a little bit more sense about strange people living in caves and such. And that there's often like the entrances to these underground worlds are often hidden and accessed by those who have special powers or are guided by spirits. And so that's like the big thing. Again, to kind of sum up, this is another situation where what they're taking is one real life example of a very amazing example, probably like the most elaborate example of people building these underground things to get away from some harsh things, then making a bunch of superficial connections with a bunch of other people who also had a concept of underground because we live in a world where caves are real, and then saying that, oh, well, obviously they could have only done it with supernatural alien technology, and that this has to do with the Ice Age and everything like that. The only thing I wasn't able to find a good answer on today that has a good explanation is I don't exactly know much about the Zoroastrian Ice Age story that they had about there being like this period of a climate of cold. But I can imagine just a cold snap and crop failures being part of that thing. We also have here a distortion of indigenous histories and beliefs, just taking a bunch of stuff, like especially of common punching bags like Zoroastrians and Native Americans, and superficially glomming their, cherished beliefs and myths onto we found an underground city, guys.
Yeah, I will admit I'm a little stuck on something you said a couple minutes ago about how some of the legends of the subterranean world have they've got their own animals and plants and stuff like that, but with different seasons. I'm interpreting different seasons not to mean like how, you mentioned your friends in Australia. They've got different weather, opposite weather to us. Yeah. I'm interpreting what would a drastically different season be that's not just like this one's hot, this one's cold, this one's mild. I'm imagining underground down here, we got different seasons. Right now we're in the season where everything's a little squishy.
Everything's purple. And actually, everything's purple. Things being a little squishy. There's a lot of a lot of places in the world where it's like tropical places where their seasons are basically the dry time and the wet time. And that is a time
the dry time and the wet time. In a couple months, we're going to get into the smelly season. Now, you're going to want to hold your nose for that one.
Oh, boy. Yeah, you could see stuff like that. Like Ontario, I feel like has an entire fifth season we don't talk about, which is just called Wasp Hell, because it's a time when the wasps are they're trying to, what's it called? Their queens have stopped giving them orders, and so they just try to find sugar wherever they can find it, and they become really aggressive and really annoying.
Wasp Hell season.
Yeah, it starts in August and it runs until about October.
Oh, well, you're out of it now, it sounds. Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I feel like this part, this feels pretty cut and dry. Basically what you were saying, it feels like it is a typical 1-2 punch of ancient aliens, of just being like, people could have built this, but nah, it's probably aliens. And then it's like, what's our evidence for that? Well, we're going to take all of these different historical accounts and beliefs, and we're going to spin them to tell the thing that we want them to say.
Yeah.
Pretty classic Ancient Aliens.
Classic Ancient Aliens fare.
Doesn't make it any less harmful, though.
Yeah.
Those little scoundrels over there.
And also, I just also wanted to draw some attention to Zoroastrianism and how it's a current religion that still exists today, because I think that it's pretty cool.
Yeah. Tell us, and then tell I gotta know about these different seasons. I gotta know about Squishy Season.
Yeah,
it's a thing that I made up.
Tweet at Props Not Aliens on Twitter or on Blue Sky and tell us your new seasons. We need
make up a new season.
Read the fifth season by N.K. Jemisin, which literally has a whole history of there being new seasons. The season of acid, the season of
yes.
But
the season of self-indulgence. That one's. Ooh, I just do that. That's one. That sounds like a good one. Yeah, that sounds good, actually.
And also, I can't log into Blue Sky right now because I forgot which email I signed up for Blue Sky with. So I can't get a code for you guys right now.
Wait, I bet I could get a code. While I get a code for Blue Sky, Tristan, where can people find more of your stuff online?
You can go to stepbackhistory.com and check out my stuff. If this video is coming out in mid-December, so if you want to check out my latest video, it is on, speaking of, we're talking about indigenous Native American stuff today. It's on the Land Back movement, which is a movement to somehow come to terms and right the wrongs of Western colonization of the Americas and find a real solution that encourages indigenous autonomy and acknowledges that they are the rightful owners of this continent we live on. Yeah. Do you have a code for us?
I do have a code for us. I have a YouTube channel called Nerdsync. It's whatever. But here's the Blue Sky code. If you want to join us on Blue Sky, the code is BSKY-social-MNFSU-7LNL7.
Nice.
Free to a good home.
Free
That's
to a good
where
home.
you go.
Scott, if I wanted to learn...
I already plugged my thing. Shut up.
Scott, if I wanted to learn why Lois Lane was almost Superman's mom, where would I need to go to find out that answer?
You go to youtube.com/google.nerdsync, and that's my YouTube channel. It's Nerdsync, Nerdsync. And I make videos about nerdy shit. And you like that, you big fucking nerds. You like that. Anyway.
Have you ever done, you should start a video where you just go straight Dom Scott.
I think I've
you
done
like that?
I've done
You like
I've
what
done
I just
I have not done that, but I have started a video. I think I've started at least a video aggressively where I'm just like, everyone shut up.
You need to start one where you're like shirtless and you just got like a belt and you're just like, all right, we're going to talk about.
All right, you fucking nerds.
I know what you guys want. just like what's it called? Nega Scott. There you go.
Yes. If you want more of this podcast, guess what? You can get an episode early, ad-free, all that good stuff over at Nebula, nebula.tv/probablynotaliens. That's where you can go. And it supports the show when you sign up. It helps us out so we can keep the lights on. Keep doing this.
Keep making BDSM jokes.
At the very end, when most of you have stopped listening.
Yep.
Thank you so much for everyone who writes reviews and leaves us feedback on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. It's helpful, as well as telling your friends. We love it when you tell your friends. Tell your friends to skip to just this part where we hand out Blue Sky codes.
It's true.
And plug our other stuff. And a great place to send your friends is probsnotaliens.com. That's the website that has all the links to everything.
Yep.
So go check it out.
Yeah.
I think that's everything. I always forget that I start the end part.
Yeah.
That's everything. So until next time, my name is Scott Nicewander.
I'm Tristan Johnson, and the truth is out there. Probably.